This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, good morning. And Parshat Toldos deals with the birth of Yaakov and Esav, and it takes us straight through all the way till Yaakov taking those brachot that had been at least intended by Yitzchak to be given to Esav, and Yaakov thereby having to flee, having to run for his life, and going to the house of Lavan, and then marrying there Rachel and Leah, and as we say, the rest is history. Now, this whole event with Yaakov and Esav and the brachot is on many levels a troubling event, and there are very, very widely varying views on how we are meant to understand what went on over there. So we'll give a sampling of some of the different approaches, some which make Yaakov into the greatest tzaddik, others which view Yaakov as having erred along the way. Well, let's see. Let us begin. Page 124, Perek Chavhei, of course, in Bereshit, Perek Chavhei, chapter 25, Pasuk Yutet, verse 19. Page 124 is where it all begins. Ve'ela Toldos, these are the offspring of Yitzchak ben Avraham, Yitzchak the son of Avraham, Avraham holid et Yitzchak, which seems to be a strange sort of pasuk. These are the offspring of Yitzchak, the son of Avraham. Well, Avraham holid et Yitzchak. Avraham, he gave birth to Yitzchak, right? You know, this is about Grant's white horse. Grant's horse was white, right? It seems to be, right, talking in a very roundabout, strange manner. And the general explanation that's given is that whereas Avraham only had one child, what do you mean? How about Yishmael? No, Avraham only had one child. Once he became Avraham, the Av Hamon Goyim, once he had the Brit Milah, the circumcision, and he had ascended to that level of Avraham, the child born from him at that level was Yitzchak. Yishmael was born from Avram, which was at a very different level. Rashi also brings, I'll just quickly bring it. Rashi brings a strange medrash. The medrash says the leitzanei hador, the jokers, the scoffers, the mockers of the generation were saying, "May Avimelech nitabra Sarah." Sarah became pregnant from Avimelech. And therefore, what did Hashem do? What Hashem do? He made Yitzchak the chip off the old block, the spitting image of his father Avraham. So when a person, sometimes you see that, you know, a mother, a daughter, or a father, a son walk in, and it's almost comical, right? How they're identical, right? Yitzchak was a carbon copy of Avraham, and that way everybody knew that Avraham holid et Yitzchak. So some of the comment, I believe the Beis Halevi points out over here, what do you mean the mockers, the jokers, you know, the late night shows of the generation were saying that? They're not mockers. If they're saying that Avimelech is the father of Yitzchak, so that challenges the whole lineage of Klal Yisrael. So we're not from Avraham. We are from Avimelech, from a rape of an Avimelech. I mean, this is not mockery. This is not leitzanut. This is something that attacks the very, very bedrock of who we are as a people. And he explains that no, the Leitzanim were saying as follows. All those years that Avraham and Sarah were together, they didn't have children. And then all of a sudden there's this episode of Avimelech. And then Sarah became pregnant from Avraham. So they were saying, May Avimelech nisabra Sarah. Right? The Medrash elsewhere, actually, though, by Moshe and Ish Mitzri, gives a bit of a parable of a person walking along in a forest. All of a sudden, he gets attacked by a swarm of bees. So he goes running as fast as he can because he knows about, a few hundred yards away, there is this little lake, this pond. And he goes running as fast as he can, and he dives into that pond in order to elude these bees. And then he dives in, he sees there's a little boy floundering there, about to drown. And he saves this boy's life. The boy goes home, and he's all shook up. The mother said, what happened? Because I was drowning. And then what happened? I was saved. I was saved by a swarm of bees. Right? Which to a certain degree is true. The swarm of bees attacked that guy, made him run, and there, right? So too, may Avimelech nisabra Sarah. Right? With all that they had endured, it wasn't enough merit for them to have a child together. But that whole Avimelech episode, that was, so to speak, the straw that broke the camel's back. And once she went through the ordeal of Avimelech, Hashem then, so to speak, acquiesced, and she had a child. From Avimelech nisabra Sarah. But Hashem we were afraid that over time people would remember the saying but not understand the whole understanding behind it. And people would actually say, Avimelech nisabra Sarah, that actually Avimelech is the one who, chas v'shalom, heaven forbid, is the one who impregnated Sarah. And therefore, Hashem made the face of Yitzchak, the carbon copy, that even if that would happen at a later point, there would be no doubt that Avraham was the father, right? But there is, I think, an important lesson along the way here, that there is everything that we endure in life, there is a special zechut, a special merit that comes from that. And, if we're going through something, say, oh, why me? Who knows if that is not what's going to be opening up the gateways for that much more that will come to you in your lifetime. Okay. Let us continue. Yitzchak was going to go through the ages. They're not able to have a child. And then Pasuk Chav Bet, right? Chav Aleph, Rivka becomes pregnant. And the children are Ratatsu, Lashon Ritza, Lashon running, right? Or it is they are agitated, right? There's a lot going on inside over there. This wasn't the usual, elbow or knee or kick, right? That a woman in pregnancy often feels. This is something a lot more than that. And she said, she went the Drotat Hashem to inquire of Hashem. Rashi explains she went to the Beit Midrash, the study hall of shame and aver. And Hashem told her through them, Rashi shliach. Here we go. Shnei goyim b'vitnech. There are two nations in your womb. Ushnei leumim mimeayach yiparedu. And two nationalities from your womb will separate. Ulaom milom ye'ematz. And one nation will overpower the other. V'rav ya'avod tza'ir. The way that the Targum explains it is, and the older will serve the younger. This is a very important prophecy or divine knowledge that was given to Rivka. We don't find that she shared this in any way with Yitzchak. Why didn't she share it with Yitzchak? It's hard to say. Rabbi Sachs writes that we find we don't find much in the Torah about Yitzchak and Rivka. We don't find that much. What we did see earlier was that when Rivka did come to Yitzchak, she saw Yitzchak and she lowered herself from the side of the camel, right? She was in a certain state of awe of Yitzchak. Now, there's Ahava and there's Yira. There's love and there is awe. Right? There's Avat Hashem and Yirat Hashem. By the Akedah, Hashem said, now I know that you are in awe of me. I knew that you loved me. Now I know that you are in love with, that you are in awe of me. Love, there is a certain level playing field. I love you, you love me, right? That's what love is. Awe is very different. Awe is I'm over here and I'm looking up. And that's why after the Akedah, Hashem said, now I know that you are in awe of me. Because you, right, if we're in love, so then, right, we say, the Pasuk says you have to have an Ezer Kenegdo, right, in a relationship, right? One needs to keep the other one balanced, keep the other one honest, call one or the other one out, right, if necessary, right? But awe is, I recognize that this is a realm beyond me. That's the Yirat Hashem. And by the Akedah, Hashem said, now I know that you recognize that if I tell you to do something, even though it is incomprehensible to you, you go ahead and you do that. That is the Yira, that's the awe. And perhaps in this relationship, as we saw from the little that the Torah does share with us, we saw that there was a certain degree of awe that she held Yitzchak. And perhaps that's why she felt it wasn't for her to tell Yitzchak, the great Yitzchak, by the way, God spoke to me and told me this. And then it was page 126. The first one came out, called him Esav. Afterwards, the brother came out, holding on to the heel of his brother, of Esav, and he was called Yaakov. Pasuk Chav Zayin 27 is very, very important. Vayigdalu anarim, and the boys grew up, and Esav was an ish, was a man who knew how to hunt, a man of the field. Yaakov was an ish tam. Yaakov was a wholesome, pure person, Yoshev Ohalim, who dwelled in the tents. Rashi says here, Vayigdalu anarim, and the boys grew up. Vayi Esav, and Esav was. And he says, only when they grew up did this happen? He says, Kol Zman Shahayu Katanim, as long as they were young, Yunikarim B'Maaseyim, they were not really recognizably different in their ways. Ve'ein Adam Midakdek Behem Mativam, and a person was not able to discern, or a person did not discern what was their nature. Once they became Yud Gimel, once they reached teenage years, Zeh Perish Lebate Midrashot, Zeh Perish Lavodah Zarah. This one went to the Beit HaMidrash, the study hall. This one went to the idolatry. Now, this is going to be one approach. Rashi approach is a very, very stark, black and white approach to Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov is the epitome of good, Esav is the epitome of evil. But Rav Hirsch points out over here that this was a mistake in the chinuch, in the education, in the upbringing of Yaakov and Esav. That they were not medaktek bativam, meaning Yaakov and Esav received the same education. They were on that same maslul, that same track. That track worked for a Yaakov. That was the wrong track for an Esav. And because of that, there was only Vayigdalu Narim. Once they got older, then it became clear. Well, that's because there was not the required Chanoch L'nar al pi darko, educate the child according to his way. There was not from the start seeing the individual and understanding what is it that this child needs in his education. And that's a very, very powerful point over here. Then what happens? Yitzchak loves Esav. Kitzayid befiv. The Rivka hevet at Yaakov. Yitzchak loved Esav. Simple meaning, because the tzayid, because the food, his hunting was in his mouth. He fed him well. Rivka loved Yaakov. Rashi, again, with the Rashi approach, has another explanation. Tzayid bepiv, that not that the tzayid, the hunting that Esav did, was in the mouth of Yitzchak, but tzayid bepiv, Esav would hunt Yitzchak with his mouth. What does that mean? That he would trick Yitzchak and ask all of these difficult halachic questions, making Yitzchak think that he was really a very scrupulously religious, devout person, and he deceived him. And according to that, Rivka loved Yaakov. Rivka, who grew up in the house of Lavan. We look back to 124 for a minute. The second pasuk said, Yitzchak took Rivka, the daughter of Betuel, the Aramite from Padan Aram, the sister of Lavan, Ha'arami, the Aramite, lo, for him as a wife. We already know who her father was. We already know who her brother was. Why is the pasuk reiterating this? So commentators explain that even though she had a father like Betuel, and even though she had a brother like Lavan, she was righteous. So coming back to here, Rivka loved Yaakov according to the approach that we had these shenanigans that Esav was deceiving his father. Well, Rivka looked at that and said, "Oh, been there, done that. I've seen the scams before." She was able to see through the deceit and the deception. She knew who he was. She knew who Yaakov was. She loved Yaakov. Again, that's a very pretty harsh view on the players here. Another explanation is something that we discussed by Parsha Mishpatim in Shemot. We have all these different laws. The first laws that we discuss are the laws of an Eved. A person who either stole and got caught and couldn't pay it back and was sold into a limited bondage situation to pay back, or a person who was overwhelmed with life and couldn't handle the pressures and decided to sell himself into slavery. And why were those the first laws of Mishpatim? Because the Father, Hashem, a parent cares most about the child who is struggling the most. And therefore, the first laws that we deal with are the laws of how to deal with this struggling child who either stole and got caught and can't pay back and is now an Eved in bondage, or a person who sold himself into bondage. And Yitzchak loved Esav. Yitzchak knew that this Esav was a tough character. but he appreciated that which Esav did. Esav was exemplary when it comes to kibud av va'em. When it comes to honoring parents, we'll see later on, Esav had special garments that he would wear when he would go to his father. Esav was exemplary when it came to kibud av va'em. According to the measures that the head of Esav rolled in and was buried in Marat HaMachpelah, right? That was because of the kibud av va'em, the honoring of parents, that he was so exemplary when it came to that. So Yitzchak saw that, and Yitzchak loved Esav. And Yitzchak was hoping that the love he would show Esav would bring Esav closer, would bring him back, right? I don't have it right in my head. There's a quote from Rav Kook, right? That a person came to Rav Kook about a child who had rejected his Judaism to a very, very extreme degree. And Rav Kook said, did you love him before? Love him now, right? And that, just like we understand, we believe that Hashem loves every person. When we're doing well, Hashem loves us. Even when we're not doing so well, when we're struggling, Hashem still loves us. Well, we need to reflect that. We need to act in a similar way. And therefore, Yitzchak loved Esav. Okay. Yaakov made a certain dish, a stew. Esav came in from the field. Hu ayef, he was tired. Esav said to Yaakov, pour some of that red stuff into my mouth. I'm famished. I'm very tired. If he's called Edom, Yaakov says to him, sell to me today your firstborn rights, your firstbornhood. Esav says, I'm going to die. What do I need this Bechorah for? And Yaakov says, swear to me, page 128. He swears, he sells the Bechorah. Yaakov gave him the stew and some bread and all that stuff. Vayochal, vayesht, vayakam, vayelech, vayivez, Esav is ha-Bechorah. He ate, drank, got up and left, and degraded, spurned the Bechorah. So what's going on over here? Right? This seems to be, the argument could be made. The poor guy's dying. The poor guy's dying. And here Yaakov takes advantage of him when he is, right, when the poor guy is dying of hunger. And this was a deceitful transaction. Well, first of all, let's just read the words. Esav came in from the field, and he was ayef. Doesn't say he was dying. Doesn't say he was famished. What does it say? He was tired. Ayef, English says exhausted. Okay. Ayef means he was tired. Give me some of that red stuff. I am ayef. I'm tired. Yaakov said, sell the Bechorah to me. Like this whole thing seems to be so disjoint. Now, the Medrash explains, and again, the Medrash is taking, as Rashi quotes it, this Medrashim are taking a very harsh stance. But Esav, Yaakov was preparing this stew. What was this stew? This stew was that Abraham had just died. And this was the special morning meal that he was preparing for his father, Yitzchak, who was an Avel, right? They lost their grandfather. Yitzchak had lost his father. Esav comes in and understands what's going on and says, right, I don't want, right, it was known that Avraham had been told your descendants will be enslaved and be afflicted. And Esav said, I want none of that. Yaakov said to him, okay, we'll sell the Bechorah to me. Esav said, it's yours. And he sold it. Now, let's take out that medrash. Let's not go with that medrash. Let's just take the words, right? So Yaakov, right? He's the poor guy seems to be very hungry or very tired. The pasuk says, right? Yaakov seems to have him at a vulnerable place. Yaakov says, "Sell the bechorah to me," and he says, "What do I need it for?" And he sold it to him. Now, if I'm in a desperate situation and someone takes advantage of me, once I'm no longer in that desperate situation, then what is my reaction? Oh my God, what have I done? Why did you take such advantage of me? You knew that I was so hungry. You knew that I would have agreed to anything. Why did you take such advantage of me? But what does the pasuk say? Lamed Daled, page 128, verse 34. Yaakov natan le'Esav. Yaakov gave Esav lechem, bread, unazid adashim, this lentil stew, right? Lentils are round, right? And that's like we give an avel, we give a mourner eggs, round food, circle of life, right? So that's what he had given him. He gave him bread and a lentil stew. Vayochal, and he ate. Vayesht, and he drank. How's he feeling at that point? No, if he was in a desperate situation, he's no longer in this desperate situation. Vayakam, and he got up. Vayelach, and he walked away. Vayivez Esav, and he degraded the Bechorah. At that point, he wasn't looking at it like, why'd you take advantage of me? Rather, he was looking at it like, wow, I just got the deal of a lifetime, right? I got the deal of a lifetime over here, right? I gave away nothing of value, and I got myself a really good meal, lechem, nazir, adashim. Wow, that Yaakov is a good cook, right? Everything's great. So if Esav doesn't value it, if I see someone's got something of value, sometimes people have traveled to Europe, to Poland, and they come across in a store that there's a sefer there, a book that's just being strewn, a sefer Torah. We've had situations, right? If they're not treating it with value, what do you want to do? You want to rescue that. So Yaakov saw, and we see that Esav, when he's not in a desperate situation, the whole thing is something that is degraded. So Yaakov took from him something of value that was not being respected, that was being degraded, and Yaakov took that from him. Now, there's another point, then, and then Gabriel, you wanted to say something. There's another interesting point here. This is not the first time that the oldest has lost his station as the elder, right? We had Yishmael and Yitzchak. Yishmael did not need to sell the Bechorah to Yitzchak. It's a meritocracy. It didn't go to the older, stronger hunter. It went to the younger, who was more worthy. You might want to answer and say, well, that's different. Like we started before, Avraham holided Yitzchak, right? Yishmael never could have been. He was born from Avram, not from Avraham. Okay, so let's go forward a generation instead of back a generation. Ruvain was the oldest, right? Yet, who became the king? Yehuda, the fourth born. Who became the Kohanim? The tribe of Levi. Who got a double portion in terms of tribes, let's say? Yosef. Reuven didn't have to sell anything. Pachas kamayim al lototar. Because of your impetuous nature, he was told, you did not get these added aspects that normally go to the firstborn. So a firstborn doesn't automatically get anything. And therefore, actually, there are those that argue and say that Yaakov was doing a tremendous kindness over here to Esav, right? He's the one who gave it up. It wasn't unceremoniously taken. I didn't want it, right? You can imagine a person saying, I didn't want it anyway. I sold it away. I gave it up, right? That way a person, right? There is a certain degree of saving face when I sold it. It wasn't taken away from me. So over here, Yaakov actually was allowing Esav some dignity in that it wasn't just taken away. He's the one who sold it. Yes, Gabriela.
Um, so I had a quick thought on what you just said about that was the last opportunity of the patriarchs for a patriarch to make that decision. Like, because once you get to Irvine, it's like those are the children of Yaakov. But maybe it's like Hashem is always giving us an opportunity, and so Yishmael missed the opportunity, but it was an opportunity to like save grace and save face for Esav in that way. But what I was going to say about Esav was like, when you were saying he ate, he drank, he got up, he left, it sounds like so punctuated and like staccato. But it also reminded me of the fact that he ate bread and lentil stew, and the bread aspect, like achalta v'savata v'rachta, like it's also punctuated, but it's like you eat, you give thanks, or you eat, you're satisfied, you give thanks, and like there's no that's
Interesting.
missing here. So
That's a nice idea, right? So he just got up and walked away. Okay, let's now zoom forward. We're going to skip the whole part of Yitzchak and Avimelech and the wells. We discussed that in other years. Let's go to page 134. And it was Yitzchak had gotten old. This is now Perek Chaf Zayin, chapter 27, page 134. He called Esav ben Gadol and said, my son, Hineni, here I am. I've gotten older. I don't know the day of my death. Now take your weaponry, go out to the field and hunt for me. Make for me those delicacies that I love, va'aviali, and bring it to me, and I will eat in order that I will bless you before I die. Rivka hears Yitzchak speaking to Esav, and Esav went out to the field. Rivka, verse 6, says to Yaakov, her son, saying, I heard your father speaking to Esav, saying, bring me some game and make for me those delicacies, and I will bless you before God, before my death. And now, my son, listen to my voice, to that which I am commanding you. Go to the flock, take from there 2 kid goats, good ones. I'll make for them these delicious things for your father as he loves. You'll bring it to your father, v'achal, and he'll eat, in order that he will bless you before his death. Okay. From these words, we always understand, or the general understanding is, that Rivka was putting Yaakov up for deception. The truth is, though, looking at these words, all we see is your father wants to bless Esav. I want you to also get a blessing. From these words, let's take it in English. So now, my son, heed my voice. Go now to the flock, fetch me from there 2 choice young kids of the goats. I'll make them as for your father as he loves. Bring it to your father, shall eat, that he may bless you before his death. Not necessarily blessing you instead of Esav, but you should get a blessing. Yaakov says to Rivka's mother, Hein Esav achi ish sa'ir, va'anochi ish chalak. Here's where the deception first comes in. Yeah, right? But one second. My brother Esav is a hairy kind of guy, and I am a smooth-skinned kind of guy. Maybe my father will feel me. I'll be in his eyes like a mocker, and I will get a klala and not a bracha. I'll get a curse and not a blessing. Page 136. His mother said to him, the curse will be on me. Listen to my voice. Go and do this. Okay. Important. If those who have a chumash with unclus, with the targum alongside, Pasuk Yud Gimel, verse 13, the mother said to him, Alai itamar b'nevuah. To me it was said through prophecy, Delo yetun levatay alach. You will not get cursed. What prophecy was said to her that he will not get cursed? What prophecy is that? That's going back to the beginning of the Parsha. When the children were agitating inside, she went to ask Hashem. Hashem said to her, V'rav yavod seir, the older will serve the younger. So therefore, this is your destiny. This is what you need to do. Okay, she takes the garments of Esav, dresses up Yaakov, and she prepares the food. He comes to his father. Father, yes, who are you? Right? I am Esav, your son. Right? Rashi says, I am who I am. Esav is your son. Or I have bought the Bechorah, and therefore I have become Esav, your son. Right? Please get up and eat from that so you can bless me. Yisroel said, why you come so fast? Yaakov answers, God prepared it all before me. Yitzchak says, come close so I can feel you. Are you my son Esav or not? Yaakov comes to Yitzchak, he feels him, he says, the voice of Jacob, the hands in the hands of Esav, and he gave him that blessing. Okay. And he gives him the whole blessing, and then Esav comes in, and the deception was clear, right? Important pasuk on page 138, 33. Yitzchak starts to tremble. Who is it that came and brought me the tzayid, and I ate, and I blessed him? Gam baruch yihiyeh. Right? Also blessed he shall remain. So there, even though he realized he gave the bracha to the wrong person, he sealed that bracha. He accepted that bracha. He said that he will also be blessed. Okay. So on a number of different levels over here, let's get an understanding. On one level, we have that Rivka had this prophecy, and therefore either she sent in Yaakov to do this, or once Yaakov spoke about doing it that way, he went in and did it that way, and he got the blessing that he was supposed to get. Esav was not worthy. Esav had sold the birthright. Yaakov was the one who was supposed to get it. Why did it need to come about through these convoluted, devious means? Nistarim divrei Hashem. The ways of God are not always revealed to us. Rav Yaakov Weinberg Zatzal, Rosh Hashiva, had a very interesting approach. He said, look, think about this. What are the chances of this deception working? I mean, it's impossible. It's not going to happen. I grew up, there was a man, Mr. Herman Schechter, Alav Shalom, a person who I loved very much. He's an older man in my community. My brother Josh, Alav Shalom, and I used to help him do different things. We were very close with him. We would walk in, we say, Good Shabbos, Mr. Schechter. He knew exactly who was talking to him. When a person's eyesight when a person's blind or diminished, the other senses tune up to a very high degree, right? It's so hard to imagine that this deception is going to work. So he explained that the whole idea was that Yitzchak saw Yaakov as being too simple, too pure, to be the leader of a nation. And he needed someone who was a little bit more out there, a little wiser, a little had some more street smarts. So Yaakov needed to show his father, I'm ready to take the initiative. I'm ready to put it out there. I'm not this simple. I'm not the simpleton that you might, the pure tzaddik. I can fend for myself. And we see he went to the house of Lavan and he did fend for himself over there. So this was not meant to deceive Yitzchak. Yitzchak knew what was going on. And Yitzchak was perhaps somewhat amused, like, oh, Yaakov. Okay, interesting. I didn't know this side of you. And when Yaakov said, Anochi Esav b'chorecha, I am Esav your son, meaning the qualities that you see in Esav, but that are unbridled in an Esav, I've got those qualities. Anochi, I'm who I am, and I have some of those qualities of Esav b'charecha, but it's properly balanced, it's nuanced, it's properly tempered, and therefore I'm able to go ahead and do this. And there is another approach. Let me say one thing first, right? It seems strange. Avraham, we know what's the midah of Avraham? Chesed, kindness. And what's the midah of Yaakov? Emet, truth. One second. I definitely hear the midah of Avraham is chesed, is kindness, right? It's non-stop kindness throughout. The midah of Yaakov is emes, is truth. That is his midah. So there are those that explain, very, very interesting approach. Avram's midah was chesed, that we know, that we accept, that we're very comfortable with. So what was Avram's greatest nisayon, greatest challenge, greatest test? The Akedah. Why? Because that went against his grain, right? We all have certain tendencies. And when we work within our tendencies, that's great, but that's not necessarily a challenge, and there's not necessarily going to be growth when we're working within our tendencies. When we go against our tendencies, that is where there is growth, because that's not my natural flow. That's where I am going upstream. So the Akedah, that's what we mentioned before. Hashem said, now I know that you fear me. I know you always loved me. That was never a question. Now I understand that you are in awe of me, that you have that yira, that you went against your grain. Yaakov's midah was emet, was truth. That's who he was down to his core. What was his greatest challenge? According to this approach, to listen to his mother, to follow the prophecy that she had, and to act in a way that was not emet. When that is what is being asked of me, demanded of me, then I'm willing to do that. When this is the prophecy that needs to be fulfilled, see, his greatest nisayon, his greatest challenge was to be able to go against that when necessary. That's another approach. But there's also the approach that Yaakov, whether he had to do it or didn't have to do it, this ended up being an endless source of pain for Yaakov. First of all, it's very important. Look at the bracha that he gave on page 138. We'll go right to the English. Page 138, Pasuk Chavchet, verse 28. May God give you of the dew of the heavens, the fatness of the earth, abundant grain and wine. Peoples will serve you. Regimes will prostrate themselves to you. Be a lord to your kinsmen. Your mother's son will prostrate themselves to you. Cursed be those who curse you. Blessed be those who bless you. That's the blessing that he had intended to give to Esav. Once the deception is up, Esav wants to kill Yaakov. Rivka hears that, so she tells Yitzchak, listen, we can't have Yaakov marry the daughters of this land, right? Let's go send him away. So go to page 142, Perek Chavchet, chapter 28. This is the Torah's first recording of a conversation between Yitzchak and Yaakov after this deception, right? We would imagine the first words were, why'd you do that to your old... If it was a simple deception, not like Rav Weinberg wants to say, if it was a simple deception, we would expect the first words to be, why'd you do that? Let's read it. So Isaac summoned Jacob and blessed him. He instructed him and said to him, do not take a wife from the Canaanite women. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father. Take a wife from there, from the daughter of Laban, your mother's brother. And now he gives him the Yaakov bracha, the blessing that had always been meant for Yaakov. And may Hashem, Kel Shakai, bless you, make you fruitful, make you numerous, may you be a congregation of peoples. May he grant you the blessings of Abraham to you and to your offspring with you, that you may possess the land of your sojourns which God gave to Abraham. What are the blessings of Abraham? Nationhood and the land of Israel. What does he give to Yaakov? Nationhood and the land of Israel. He was always planning on giving this to Yaakov. The blessing to Esav was about this world. And again, there are those that say that Yitzchak envisioned a partnership, a Yisachar Zvulun type of partnership, that Esav would have the bounties of this world that he would share with Jacob, and that way Jacob would be able to, Yaakov would be involved in his spiritual pursuits. They would share the bounty. Esav would share with Yaakov the bounties of this world. Yaakov would share with Esav the bounties of the next world. That's what Yitzchak had hoped for. Rivka saw that Esav was not the man to carry that out. But we see clearly over here that the blessing of Abraham was not meant to go to Esav and go to Yaakov. That was not the bracha that went from Esav to Yaakov. This is the nationhood, and is what went directly from Yitzchak to Yaakov, with full disclosure when he knew exactly who he was giving the blessing to. So there are those that say, and Rabbi Sachs brings this idea also, that Yaakov made a mistake in jumping in to take the bracha of Esav. Right? That was not the bracha that was meant for him. That was the bracha that was meant for Esav. And this deception plagued Yaakov throughout. He goes to the house of Lavan, and what happens? He's deceived. He works 7 years for Rachel, and instead is giving Leah. He then waits 7 days, marries Rachel, but needs to work another 7 days. He has his beloved son, Yosef, so his wives deceive him. His children deceive him, bringing the cloak of Yosef. after they had sold him and saying, recognize, is this the cloak of your son? So all of that resulted. That's clear. That is clear. So whether we'll say that Yaakov made a mistake in doing this, and that was what came back at him, or even if he did the right thing, but nevertheless, sometimes we do the right thing, no good deed goes unpunished. Sometimes we do the right thing, and there still are going to be repercussions that result from that. Right? There's no guarantee you do the right thing, and therefore you enter Shangri-La for the rest of your life. That's not how it works. That's not what we sign up for. And just one last idea on that, if we'll zoom forward to Parshat Vayishlach, when Yaakov is going to meet up, right, reconnect with Esav after the whole time that he spends in next week's Parsha Vayetze, that he spends over there in the house of Lavan building his family, and he sends Esav this tremendous gift of Olam Hazeh, of this world. And what do we find over here? Page 178, Perek Lamed Gimel. Pasuk Yud, or Pasuk Tet. Esav said, I've got much. I've got so much. My brother, that which is yours, keep that which is yours. But Yomer Yaakov said, no, please, no. If I have found favor in your eyes, lakachta, take minchati, take this gift, this tribute from me. Right? Because I've seen you, etc. Next pasuk Yud Aleph, kach na et birchati. Please take my gift. Right? So the English says mincha is a tribute and birchati is a gift, but a tribute and a gift is basically the same thing. But a different word is being used over here. Mincha is a gift. Kachna et birchati. What's birchati? Take my bracha. Right? The bracha is yours. Some learn, take the bracha. The bracha is yours. I shouldn't have taken it. It's yours. Kach na et birchati. Right? Take this bracha. Yesh li kol. I've got everything I need. So according to some, this was Yaakov, so to speak, returning the bracha to Esav. And I think it's very important. There are so many different layers, right? Even in our world, in our interactions, there's so many different layers at play in all that goes on with us. And certainly over here, when dealing with Yaakov and Esav, there are so many different layers, so many different aspects, so many different perspectives of all that went into these iconic episodes that the Torah shares with us. And I think there's much that we can learn from each of these different approaches. Okay, my friends, we'll call it over here. Yasher koach, everybody. Good seeing you. Thank you, Gabriella. And we had some in person. Those who can come in person, please do. Those who can't, please continue to sign on. Okay. A good day, everybody. Shavua tov, Shavua tov.
What? Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming, guys.